My daughter's rebellion turned into a legal nightmare. I reprimanded my daughter, she called the police, and I lost custody of all my children. After I forbade her from seeing her 21-year-old boyfriend, she claimed abuse. I lost custody of all my children, and she tried to separate her baby brothers forever. Follow the harrowing true story of a mother fighting deportation and exposing her daughter's devastating lie in a U.S. court to save her family. I am going through a huge problem, a disaster that erupted in my life, all thanks to my 15-year-old daughter. For months, I had been navigating her aggressive, misunderstood teenage rebellion. She pushed every boundary, testing my patience and challenging every rule I set. I didn't let her do whatever she wanted, and that refusal became the fuel for the fire that consumed my family. A few days ago, the conflict reached its breaking point. She announced, with utter finality, that she wanted a boyfriend. She was in love with someone she liked. She was ready. I said no. A clear, absolute, protective no. She is 15. She is not ready for that responsibility, nor that emotional danger. My refusal was met with a storm of teenage fury. She insulted me, told me I didn't understand her, and we had a terrible, screaming argument that night. Last week, the real terror began. I went to sleep as usual, exhausted from the confrontation, after tucking her two little siblings, my 1-year-old and 2-year-old sons, into bed. She has her own room, but I woke up in the deepest part of the night. It was a sudden, sickening instinct that pulled me from sleep and found her bed empty. I immediately checked the cameras in the house. The timestamp read 2 a.m. She had left on her own 2 feet. Desperate, I rushed down to the building security guard. I pleaded with him to check the external cameras. I told him my daughter was missing. He became immediately annoyed and hostile. He refused, citing procedure, but then made a terrifying suggestion. He said, "If you want me to check the cameras, you have to call the police because something serious is happening." He was putting the liability onto me. I called the police. They arrived several agonizing hours later. It was now 5:30 a.m., and she hadn't returned. We checked the security footage, and the truth, slowly revealed, was agonizing. We discovered she hadn't left the building. She was in another apartment on a higher floor. The police located the apartment. They knocked, and there she was, found sleeping with a man. She is 15, and he is 21. She was there voluntarily, for the boy she was in love with. I realized my mistake too late. I should have investigated him. I didn't realize I was fighting not just a rebellious child, but a manipulative adult. The confrontation was a physical assault on my sanity. My first instinct, seeing my child in that situation, was pure, uncontrolled rage. I lunged at that man, and then, in my fury, I turned on her. It was an act of shock and fear, but it was the worst mistake of my life because it gave her the weapon she needed. The police separated me, and then she began to scream. She screamed that she didn't want to live with me anymore. She begged them not to take him away, claiming she felt safe with him. And then the words that destroyed my life. She told the officers she was afraid of me and that I would hit her when we got home. And then in that single shattering instant, she dropped the ultimate bomb. She was pregnant with his child. She used her pregnancy as a shield, lying about my behavior to gain their protection. My world collapsed. I was now facing not just a custody issue, but criminal allegations, all while being alone in this country. And because of those words, the words of a child trying to protect her own poor decisions, CPS took custody of all 3 of my children, her and my 2 innocent sons. The devastation continued. My sons, my 1- and 2-year-old babies, were placed with a substitute family. But my 15-year-old daughter requested to be separated from her brothers. She told the social workers she didn't want to look after her brothers and that they brought back bad memories of living with me. She deliberately lied, fabricating trauma to avoid the inconvenience of caring for her own siblings. I have completely lost custody of her. She has stated she never wants to see me again and is now up for adoption. I am fighting for my sons, but the emotional cost is immense. Meanwhile, the father of her child faces serious statutory charges where he belongs, but my problem is deeper. I am terrified. The custody process is slow, agonizing, and expensive. And over my head hangs the constant, chilling shadow of deportation. Because of the seriousness of the accusation she made, ICE could knock on my door at any moment. I am terrified that this deportation could happen before I fulfill the necessary requirements to regain custody of my children, separating us forever by an ocean. I am alone in this state. My sister, Maria, who is a citizen, traveled from Florida to help. She is my only hope. She has visited the boys multiple times, but when the authorities asked my daughter if she wanted to be placed with her aunt, she looked them in the eye and lied. She said she didn't know her, had never seen her, and wanted to stay with the father of her child. But this lie was noted. The social worker had the evidence. How can you say you don't know your aunt when you have photos and verified conversations with her? This blatant lie, this inconsistency in her story, is the only saving grace, the only point I have in my favor that shows her immaturity and her dishonesty. Furthermore, the psychological studies done on my two youngest boys came back negative for any sign of abuse. They were not harmed. I was not the violent mother she claimed. She was simply a desperate child trying to escape the consequence of her pregnancy. The custody of my two youngest sons now hinges on the final legal hearing. I am standing on the edge of a precipice, knowing that the truth about my daughter's selfishness must be proven to the court before my time runs out. The final hearing for the temporary placement of my two youngest sons arrived. I had completed the mandated parenting courses. I had submitted to every psychological evaluation. I was legally clean, but emotionally empty. Judge Miller presided, a woman known for her strict, unyielding adherence to child welfare. My sister Maria sat beside me, her citizen status a quiet, powerful shield. Across the room sat Laura, visibly pregnant, tired, but still clinging to her stubborn, self-righteous rebellion. The prosecutor hammered the case. The mother, Eleanor, showed initial violence and poses a flight risk. Custody must remain with the state. My lawyer's defense felt weak. Judge Miller then addressed the core of the CPS report, the lie that separated the siblings. Laura, you testified under oath that your mother created a dangerous, abusive environment, and you requested that your younger brothers be separated from you due to trauma. Can you explain that decision now? Laura, pressured by the formal setting, crumbled. Her voice, stripped of its teenage defiance, was suddenly small and petulant. I didn't want the hassle. They're just babies. They cried all night. I wanted to stay with the boyfriend and not deal with the baby stuff. The courtroom was silent in shock. The elaborate lie about trauma and fear was exposed as pure, unadulterated selfishness. Judge Miller's expression was hard, unforgiving. Your Honor, I finally said, my voice clear and steady, addressing the court directly. My daughter lied to separate her brothers because they were inconvenient. Her fear was a manufactured shield for her personal desires. She is immature, but the psychological evaluations done on my two youngest boys prove I am not a violent mother. The only threat to those boys now is their indefinite separation from the only parent left with a clear record, me. Judge Miller looked at the prosecutor, then at my sister Maria. The court finds that Laura's testimony regarding the separation of her brothers was self-serving and not credible. The custody of the two youngest children will be transferred to Ms. Maria, a U.S. citizen, under strict supervision with the goal of immediate reunification with their mother, Eleanor, pending the finalization of her citizenship application. The children will not be separated from their blood family further. My two youngest sons were granted temporary custody to my sister, and the pathway to my own citizenship was accelerated through the family court's intervention. Laura screamed, realizing her lie had backfired spectacularly, achieving not freedom, but complete isolation. I had not won the war entirely, but I had won the most vital battle. My children were safe, together, under my sister's care. I had lost a daughter to her own immaturity, but I had saved my sons through the simple, painful power of the truth.